What are the most useful, easy to build, early game farms for a new world in Minecraft? Food, wood, iron, sugarcane, and gunpowder. And if you're impressed I've answered that question in the first 15 seconds of the video rather than drivelling on for 20 minutes, hit the like button. Go on. So, why exactly are these farms so useful? Well, it might not seem particularly obvious, but they can actually help you to maximise your armour, pick up elytra, and even get your way towards a slow and steady abundance of resources. Never heard of a set of farms that can do that? Here's how. First up, the food farm is going to give you potatoes. You can cook these and eat them to survive, and you'll get a small amount of XP. Next, you want to grab some sheep for shearing so that we can get ourselves some wool, which will help us make some beds later. The wood farm should then provide us with logs. Then we can take the logs and turn them into planks, and then take the planks with the wool and turn them into beds. And with our newly crafted beds and a surplus of potatoes from the food farm, we can begin breeding a lot more villagers, which is sort of the key to our success here. Also, you'll get a small amount of XP. We can also use the wood to create slabs, which will allow us to make composters, turning our newly bred villagers into farmers. That we can trade the remaining potatoes with for emeralds, and of course, more XP. Oh, and don't forget you can also try your hand at the art of camouflage. As you can see here, my head appears to blend in with just about everything in this village. In particular, the back of my head seems to resemble a stripped oak log. The planks can also be used towards making fletching tables and sticks, turning some of our villagers into fletchers, allowing us to trade the sticks for even more emeralds. And of course, more XP. Next up, we've got the iron farm, which is going to give you iron. You can use this alongside other resources in order to create grindstones, blast furnaces, and smithing tables, which will give you a bunch of villagers that you can trade all the iron with for lots of emeralds and lots of XP. And if you level up the weaponsmiths, toolsmiths, and armourers, well, you're going to have access to diamond gear, weapons, and tools. Also, the Fletchers will give you access to better bows, the farmers will give you access to golden carrots, and you're going to have so many trades going on that you don't even need an XP farm. That's right, no XP farm. But before you judge me, quit the video and go looking for one, take a look at this little clip here. I started on 0 levels at the beginning of this clip, feel free to wind it back and take a look. But thanks to Barry and his merry band of brothers here, I've managed to accumulate 22 levels. 22! And I've still got loads of iron left. Now that the first 3 farms are taken care of, our next stop is the Nether. More specifically, we're looking for a Nether fortress. This is so that we can find a blaze spawner and get blaze rods. Also, it gives us a great opportunity to put all of our new shiny gear, tools and weapons to use. The blaze rods can be used to make potion stands so you can get yourself some clerics, and once you've leveled them up you'll be able to trade for ender pearls. So we now have blaze rods and ender pearls, which the more experienced players will know can only mean one thing. We are going to be heading out to find the end, but before we do, we need to make sure that we're properly prepared. Therefore, the next task is going to be stockpiling gear, weapons, tools, food, and everything we could possibly need. Mostly just in case we die and lose all of our stuff. And as usual, more trading means more XP. The stockpiling will take time though, as trades will get locked out, so we want to put that time to good use. So you'll want to head to the Nether to find gold, and then to a swamp to find slimes, which are 2 key materials we're going to need for our next farm. And that next farm is sugarcane, which we are then going to turn into paper. Combine that with leather, which we'll get from killing cows and horses. Combine that with wood to make bookshelves, and then lecterns, which we will use for what I believe is the worst task in all of Minecraft, rolling for librarian villager trades. If you're not familiar with this process, I'd suggest going and looking it up, because I'm not going to cover it in this video, but it pretty much is identical to what you're looking at now. The end result is that you should be able to trade for specific enchantments in order to maximise the stats on your gear. You can also use excess sugarcane to make use of the paper trade, all with the added benefit of more XP. All meaning it's finally time to take on the Ender Dragon. However, it's not actually the Ender Dragon that we're interested in. We just want to get past it so we can explore the end, go and find some end cities, and grab ourselves an elytra. You know, not that we're trying to discredit or devalue this clearly very epic fight between myself and this glorious dragon. But with all the preparation we've done up to this point, it should be pretty straightforward. And that brings us on to our fifth and final farm, gunpowder. Which, if you don't know, we can combine with paper in order to make rockets, which alongside our elytra means that we can fly. So we have now covered what are the most useful and easy to build early game farms for a new world in Minecraft. We've also covered why it is that they are so useful and what the point of them is, and also how they are so useful. Which means that there's only one thing left to do. Let's take a look at the farms. At this point, I expect you've joined a world, punched a tree, made a crafting table, grabbed yourself some tools, eaten some food, narrowly escaped death, slept, and hopefully found yourself a village to call home. And if that sounds somewhat familiar to you, then I expect you're ready to start making some real progress. So, let's get started. This is the village that I found in my own world, and this building here in front of us, well, this is the farmhouse. And while she may not look like a whole lot from the surface, if we take a look underneath, well, you can see I've been pretty busy. If you haven't managed to work it out already, I've actually opted to build the farms underground, which is both a huge waste of time in the early game and stupid for a number of other reasons that we can get onto later. Obviously, I do not recommend building the farms underground. It has, however, allowed me to create this lovely time-lapse, which I think is pretty cool, and it leads me to ask you, how many stone blocks do you think that I mined in the making of this video? Let me know your guess in the comments. But for now, we move on to farm number 1. Food. All you need for this is a decent patch that you can go and harvest manually. A 9x9 dirt grid with water in the very centre is the most efficient for growing crops. I'd suggest potatoes because you can cook them to be a better food source and still trade them. This is definitely the simplest farm of the lot, and many of you argue it's not even a farm, but remember, the goal here is easy to build farms to help us progress quickly. We need some food now to survive while we work on our next farms, but the end goal when it comes to food should be to trade for golden carrots, because it's the best source of food in the game. Therefore, making automated or semi-automated food farms, such as this one, that don't even give you the best source of food in the game, is completely pointless and just wastes loads of time and resources. But there's no denying they're incredibly satisfying to watch. With the food now taken care of, it's time to talk about our next farm. Wood. Being that it's used for most crafting recipes, including redstone components, and that it can be used for fuel, wood is pretty essential. And just like the food farm, a manual setup for this is fine, but if you do decide to build it underground, you will find yourself clearing out an awful lot of headroom, like I am here. The setup for this farm is incredibly simple. You just need to clear an area for water that will collect all of the drops from the trees, and in the centre set up some 2x2 dirt platforms for the saplings to grow on. And as you can hopefully tell from this shot, spruce is the best choice. That's because these will turn into mega trees that provide you with a lot more wood, and there's a positive yield of saplings dropped, so you won't have to keep going out scavenging for more saplings every time you want to grow some more trees. And while some of you might think building an automatic tree farm is a better solution to this problem, this farm requires very little resources and very little effort and provides tons of wood, which is exactly what we're looking for in the early game. The next farm on the list is iron. And this one actually uses some redstone unlike the first two. The circuitry at the bottom is used to trigger the piston to push a zombie into view of the villagers, making use of the scare mechanic. That alongside the villagers sleeping and working fulfills the requirement for an iron golem to spawn. Having an iron farm, especially a simple one like this, early on is a game changer. Not only is iron a heavily used resource throughout crafting recipes that otherwise takes time to go and mine for, which is solved thanks to the farm being fully automated, but because the farm is fully automatic and the iron can be traded for emeralds, it means that we can get a steady supply of emeralds for virtually no effort, which, as I mentioned before, we can use to trade for various other useful items. Working with villagers and zombies does make it a little bit trickier to build, especially when your zombie decides to disappear and try to jump scare you. They also don't always go where you expect them to. Finally, it's really important that you build this farm far enough away from your village, otherwise you'll find that your iron golems don't spawn within the designated area. For me, this is probably one of the only times that building the farm underground actually worked out in my favour. And as you can see here, thanks to the farm, I've managed to get myself stacked with iron and a steady supply of emeralds, which has enabled me to get a major upgrade to the shiny blue stuff. But before we tackle the next farm, we need a couple of resources that are a little bit harder to find. First up, we need to head down to Y level 13 in the Nether and the hunt for gold. Just make sure that you bring a Silk Touch pickaxe with you, as we want the full blocks, as we can smelt them for gold bars rather than the nuggets. Unfortunately, I made this mistake myself, but it's easily rectified thanks to the villagers that we set up earlier. Of course, there are other ways to obtain gold as well. However, I've opted for low down in the nether so that you can also hopefully find quartz and possibly some ancient debris, both of which are valuable resources that are well worth having. Next on the list is slime, which, as I mentioned earlier, I'd usually go off to a swamp for. However, when I was mining out the underneath of the farmhouse, I actually discovered a slime chunk. So rather than try and hunt down for all of the slimes that we need in the swamp biomes, I opted to instead dig out even more stone and try to make a quick slime farm. Again, thanks to the iron farm, we were able to make the golems with relative ease. I just had to go out and find some pumpkins. I only did 5 levels for this to keep it really quick, and aside from falling off the platforms a lot, it was pretty easy to build. It is heavily unoptimized, especially the catchment area, which I think on most of the designs I've seen uses like minecart hoppers underneath, whereas I've just kind of tried my best to push it with water. But it does the job, and means we're ready to move on to the next actual farm on this list. Sugarcane. But I actually want this sugarcane farm to be pretty big, so as with the theme of the video so far, we're going to dig out some more stone. And if you're not completely sick of me mining stone and you've enjoyed the video, then please subscribe. But enough of the stone mining, it's time to get on with the actual farm. First up, we've got a rail network that runs underneath the farm that's going to pick up all of the drops. On top of that, we've got a platform where all the sugarcane is going to grow. And finally, we've got a flying machine that's going to do the harvesting, running from one end of the platform to the other. The farm is then triggered automatically by this hopper clock, which hopefully, if I've timed this clip correctly, is going to go any moment now. No? Oh, there we go. Perfect. And most importantly, it provides us with plenty of sugarcane. But for now, it's time for farm number 5, gunpowder. This farm is pretty standardised at this point and basically makes use of the fact that creepers are scared of cats. I start by building the structure for the creepers to spawn in. This was then followed by a water chute that will collect the creepers. So the idea is that a creeper will spawn in, it will get scared of the cat and run towards the water chute, which will then push the creepers away from the farm and over the top of some campfires. Then all that's have to do at this point is to put some trapdoors in to ensure the creepers actually fall down the water chute, put some carpet in to ensure the spiders don't spawn, manoeuvre the cats into position and cover the whole thing up with trapdoors followed by another layer of blocks. And there you have it. This cobblestone mess is our creeper farm. Now, usually these farms are built up high up in the sky in order to optimize the spawn rate, because by building it high up in the sky, all of the dark caves around you can't fill up with mobs or fill up the mob cap and therefore affect the spawn rate. However, we have not done that. So, unfortunately, it's pretty slow. And that's made even worse by the fact that it backs onto the slime farm. And there you have it. That's it. 5 easy to build early game farms that are going to be really useful in helping you to make progress in Minecraft. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. Drop us a comment and I'll catch you in the next one. And the answer to how many stone blocks I have mined for this episode is 28,961. Mental.